Gary Habermas is making good on what might be the most extensive theological project of the 21st century. His massive 4 volume project on the historicity of the resurrection. I already have 3 videos on volume 1, Evidences, where Habermas presents the historical evidence for the resurrection of Jesus Christ with an emphasis on his strategy of the minimal facts. That is, those facts that are widely accepted by the vast majority of historian scholars today. This review is on part number 2. This is volume 2, Refutations. The word refutation, according to the Oxford Dictionary, is the action of proving a statement or theory to be wrong or false. In Volume 2, Habermas covers the widely used refutations against the gospel in order to show the errors in these theories which try to deny the historicity of the resurrection. This will be review 1 of 2. In this review, I'm going to give my overall thoughts on this book. And in review number 2, I will share what I believe is the most helpful insight that you can glean for your own personal witness for Jesus Christ that you can get out of this 800-page book. In short, I want to begin by saying I found Refutations to be an important read, yet not nearly as enjoyable as Volume 1. At times, reading this book felt a lot more like schoolwork than anything else, which should be of no surprise and no mark against Habermas. I'm just being honest here. It's not fun to read about attacks against the resurrection. It was enjoyable at times to read Habermas pick apart those objections one by one, or to read him quoting other atheist theologians or scholars who were attacking the resurrection theories of others. But I don't want to spend my evening reading reviews of David Hume's article against miracles or about the differences between the illumination and illusion hypotheses against the resurrection. Now, I think it's helpful to know these views and to know how they fall short, but it's not a lot of joy reading about people who are going against the resurrection. With that being said, if you have a few minutes, I'll give you an overview of what to expect in Refutations, as well as my favorite and least favorite parts of this work by Gary Habermas. Welcome to Rev Reads. If you want to discover more books that will help you to defend the gospel of Jesus Christ, please subscribe to the channel in order to stay up to date with my latest book reviews. Also, please share this video with others. I want as many people as possible to know about this astounding work by Gary Habermas, and your shares go a long way to making that happen. Now, I personally would divide the book Refutations into 5 different sections. Section 1 is the first chapter on 2nd century challenges to the death and resurrection of Jesus. In this chapter, Habermas demonstrates that there are basically no rejections to the historicity of the death and resurrection of Jesus for over 100 years. All of the documents that we possess don't really argue against the events that are the center of Christianity. They don't argue that they never occurred. Even writings that we would say are outside of the Christian circle, such as early Gnostic Gospels, they still support the view that Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead. We need to go about 150 years to find the first challenger to the events at the end of the Gospels, the person who said they did not occur. And this sets the church on fairly firm footing that contemporaries don't have. That the witnesses of that generation, they declared that the resurrection of Jesus Christ truly occurred. Now, I did think that the first chapter at times was slightly repetitive since there are no real shockers in it, but it really demonstrates that everything we possess today from that time period supports the view of the early church. The second section is on miracles themselves, not specifically on the resurrection, as Habermas uses David Hume's 1748 essay of miracles and the responses to it in order to argue against those who say that there are no miracles in general before we get to the specific miracle of the resurrection. So what we have here is over 100 pages, which one form a great introduction to Hume's arguments, as well as a historical examination of their reception and an able critique to show Hume's biases and weaknesses. The third section of the book is a historical journey through the rising in popularity of resurrection theories in various stages of modernism and postmodernism. It covers chapters 4 through 7 of the book, and in my view, this was the most difficult portion of the book to read, because in these chapters there's not a whole lot of pushback by Habermas when he's covering all of these various views on the resurrection from the 19th century to today. He's just chronicling all the different views that people put out in order to try to disprove the resurrection of Jesus. And I don't think many readers are going to gain a lot of joy from those chapters. I think if you're not in academia, and if you're not interested in the historical journey of the views against the resurrection, you can probably skip pages 185 to 354 because they won't be a great use in your refutations when you're seeking to evangelize others. Then you have pages 355 to 720. This cover the bulk of the book. It's chapters 8 through 16. And here Habermas covers all the major theories on the death and resurrection of Jesus. Most anyone who has read apologetics works in the past will be familiar with many of these theories. Those covered are discrepancies in the gospel texts, the fraud theories that the body of Jesus was stolen, the swoon theory, the story of Jesus being a retelling of the stories of pagan gods or historical heroes, illumination or illusion hypotheses, the hallucination theory, and visions. This section was largely very helpful, as Habermas, along with many other voices that he quotes throughout the book, pokes holes after hole into these sinking ships of theories, trying to explain how Jesus didn't rise from the dead, but at the same time, the gospel still somehow was able to lead to the founding of the church. Now, my biggest complaint about the book overall is that at times I felt like it might be, or it was, overly repetitive, and that you are covering a lot of the same ground multiple times. But I think by skipping chapters 4 through 7, that might be helped for a lot of readers. So if you're not interested in knowing about the development of these theories, you can skip those chapters. And if you're concerned of knowing about the meat behind those theories and then the holes in them, you can read chapters 8 through 16, and that will be very helpful. The final section in my divisions of this book, so the fifth and final section, would be those concluding chapters where Gary Habermas wraps it all up by discussing what he calls resurrection agnosticism in today's criticism of the gospel. 5 reasons for the failures of naturalistic theories, and a brief 2-page conclusion. The concluding chapters really are a knockout blow, in my view, against all of the modern theories against the resurrection. And Habermas didn't really need to inflict the death blow himself to knock them down. It was really other historical scholars themselves who led to the defeat of each other. I think the resurrection agnosticism chapter is the most compelling chapter in the book, because the refusal of current scholars today to settle on any one of the resurrection theories, for some to gather together a hodgepodge of these views, or to take Bart Ehrman's view that none of these theories are probably true. He just believes the resurrection also isn't true. Habermas shows that through the current views, not of Christian scholars, but of your standard historians who have taken careful examination of the resurrection, none of those theories really present a strong, or I would even say moderate, challenge to the resurrection. They all have flaws that are fatal, and none of them are based on any genuine evidence outside of the creativity of those who already wanted to deny the resurrection. It's funny, the story that kept coming to my mind after I was about halfway through this book was the story of The Emperor's New Clothes by Hans Christian Andersen. This is a story of the vain emperor who went out exposed and wearing no clothes. And because of his advisors, he thought he had this beautiful outfit on that he was the only one who couldn't see it. And then a little boy pointed out that the emperor was naked when everyone else was afraid to tell the truth. Well, Habermas shows that all of the theories on the resurrection, all of them have no depth. There's no evidence for any of them. The theories have no clothes. And then when Habermas used that same illustration in page 737 of the book at the end, I was like, oh, wow, we're going to the same place. This is great. So I would say Refutations, overall, this book is excellent, albeit at times a little repetitive. And I'm just going to be honest, it's hard to read all of the arguments against the resurrection. But in the end, it's worth going through that hard work and doing that journey. Because after you go through all of those arguments, what you end up seeing is that those theories have no weight. There's nothing behind all of those theories outside of the hot air of those who are trying to support them. So this is really good work by Gary Habermas, and I'm going to come back with a second review in a couple of days on how to make use of this information in your own personal evangelism.